Okay, so good morning. I'm Cardito Loyola Jr. from NU Laguna, and I'm here to present to you my research study entitled Development of a Role-Playing Game as an Educational Tool for Teaching the Philippine Cultural Values and Methodology. So from the cluster of education, and I'm in the professional category. All right, so to start my presentation, let me tell you about my study. So, short introduction or short background of my study is we all know that the Philippines is an archipelago of 7,107 islands and a country with high biodiversity, which having such a characteristic for a country creates cultural differences that is distinct between its region. In fact, there are 70 ethnic groups located in the country which have different dialects, religion, and then culture. So from these differences in the Philippines, linguistic is the basis for identifying different ethnic um, that were called an ethno-linguistic group according to Castro 2011. The way of writing also falls under culture. Script or cultural heritage that Philippines has script called Baybayin that exists before before colonization of other countries. This is according to De Los Santos in 2015. It is important that in Philippine culture we do know the Baybayin scripts since in the Philippines this is one of our identities. On April 2018, this is according to the National Writing System Act by Representative Leopoldo Bataoy, the House approved the proposed bill, which is it declares awareness and appreciation of the Baybayin script and promoted it as the national writing system of the Philippines. Our governments wants to actively promote the Philippines culture and values. The Social Development Committee and the National Economic and Development Authority are the ones heading the implementation of the the Philippine Development Plan that covers strategies on how to promote culture and its values. These challenges and problem were in how Philippine preserve culture and heritage as according to National Economic and Development Authority. One of the recommended strategies for this challenge is digitizing cultural properties via text, films, and visual art. So as now or nowadays, since technology or the digital eras are here, so most of the culture, the heritage, the script in the Philippines are lessened or being forgotten by the people. Therefore, most of the historian tell that we need to recommend different strategies how to give another life from this culture. Okay, so from this problem or challenges, my research focus on how to develop a game um, a thing or a device which will help to easily give a youth a learning or easily give the students learning in this kind of things. So let me continue. According to Montemor, okay, another thing to consider is that students in the Philippines are weak in history and social studies. Like I said, this culture, this script, this heritage, this values in those era were easily forgotten by the youth in the Philippines specifically. Montemar said that the factors such as low quality textbook and having a pedagogy that is not student centered affect how students absorb and learn about history. So in his study also stated that students just become submissive to what is offered to them. Therefore, from this problem, let me repeat this, the researcher goal is to digitize such as the Philippine culture possession, specifically Philippine mythological creatures such as Bakunawa, Bungis-ngis, Bangungot, Kapre, Dewata, Manananggal, or the Philippine god and goddesses. Also, my research focus in the a script which called Baybayin, and I incorporate it in a role-playing game to share, to help, and to promote the culture, and at the same time being educational and fun. So to continue this, my objective here is to design and render the following. So like I said, I will be creating a game. So this game, of course, will lead on on promoting, helping the youth to recognize those culture and values. So I will be designing the Philippine mythological creatures and Philippine gods and goddesses or the game assets using 3D and modeling. Environment in 2D perspective using 3D modeling. Of course, I will be developing it, then teach the students the Baybayin script in mythology through a role-playing game. So the objective of the game is to teach those students the Baybayin script according to the Philippine mythology. So for the last, of course, to know that my game or my role-playing game is of course well well designed or well developed, I will be evaluating it according to the interface, ease of use, usability, and of course the accuracy in terms of functionality and in-game attribute like score, health points, etc. Right? So for this method, I will be using the ADDIE model. So what is the ADDIE model? It is a systematic, learner-centered, instructional system design wherein each page will be in line with the learner's need. So for the ADDIE, I will be using those 4 paces to evaluate, no, not to evaluate or not just to evaluate, but also to design, to choose the best materials that my game needed to help my objective. So how can I use this ADDIE? So I will be using this flow, which will first I will be going to analysis, wherein in the analysis phase, the researcher, me, identified what factors in the traditional way of teaching history affect students on how they learn about Philippine history and culture. The researcher also researched about the different mythological creatures and deities throughout the Philippines. The researcher also studied about the Baybayin script and how to properly integrate in the game, and where in this space the researcher also identified who are the main sample of the research as well where the research was conducted. After the analysis, I will begin to go to the design phase wherein me identify the research objective and also the goal of the game. This is also the phase where the researcher create the game rules, design the character and level, see how to effectively communicate the things that the researcher want to impart, and formulate a solution on how to teach history and culture through other media. This phase also strategize how the researcher create an effective gamify Philippine mythology and baybayin. Now, of course, after analyzing those materials, creating those design, in the development phase, the researchers gather learning resources. The researcher use software wherein I can create those game, I can create those character, and at the same time, designing all the materials that I will be needing. This also the phase where the researcher develop and code the game itself. After development, of course, the implementation was there. So in this, the researcher let their game be played by high school students of my target audience, which is the Colegio de San Juan de la Trangalamba High School, during the subject which is appropriate to the game, the history subject in specific. In this space, the researcher observed how to create how the created game was for the students. And last, of course, evaluation will help me to gather all the data, or knowing all the data from my research. In this evaluation phase, after the game is played, the researcher gave the students an evaluation tool to help the research calibrate what lacks and what is much for the game, and to help future researcher in developing games about the Philippine culture. So this was the model that I used to create those games. So in addition, the respondent of the study were big 30 junior high school students of Colegio de San Juan de la Calamba from grade 7 to 10, for which it was conducted during their history subject. So the researcher used this approach because the model is flexible, as it can go back to any phase and any time, and is applicable to the game development process as well as the implementation and evaluation at the end of the research. So as a result, this is my survey. So I use a quantitative approach to know those to gather all the data. So the researcher conducted a post-test survey of the game Hiwaga, which the title of the game, on 30 grade 7 to 10 students of Colegio de San Juan de la Calamba, and one professional. So why one professional? It's because these are the educator were is knowledgeable in those history, and at the same time professional who is or who has the profession or professional for those game in terms of this specific or specification, technical specification. The researcher used the convenience sampling technique as a way of collecting data because the sampling method is best for pilot testing in a relatively small population. This method was deemed the most effective sampling method in this scenario in evaluating the survey on the students' knowledge on baybaying character after the game. The researcher used a short quiz to assess their acquisition of knowledge in baybayin. So, according to the table result of student knowledge on baybayin character, number 1 to 4 are words that has 2 syllables, and more than 60% of the student got the correct answer except for the word iyo in number 2, which has the syllable that uses Y. The baybayin character that uses the Y sound was the only showed on the highest difficulty of the game, which is the stage 7, which is why only 56.67 of the student got the correct answer. So from the number 5 to 7 are 3-syllable words, and 70% of the students get the correct answer in numbers 5 and 7. In numbers 6 and 7, the researchers introduce words with different kudlits, or dots or dashes on baybayin character to represent a vowel associated with a consonant. In number 6, what you can see here, 3-syllable with consonant vowel association was presented, and it goes on 56.67% of students to answer it correctly. Lastly, for numbers 8 to 10, words with 4 syllables are used. Only number 9 got correct answer that are above 50%. Number 8 and 10 has the same case with number 2. These syllables were introduced at the last stage of the game. This caused number 8 and 10 to have correct answer below 50% of the respondent. To continue, based on the result, beyond half of the respondent gave a rating of 10 and strongly agreed that the game responses consistently, it is artificial intelligence behave as intended, the game view as appropriately set, and does not feel of the game input mechanic, does not feel out of place, the in-game elements respond to controls. The game provides status tracking, and the game's user interface is clarified and organized. In evaluating and assessing the survey on the design, um, the usability of the game, the researcher used the 11-point Likert scale to interpret the result. So in general, the respondents strongly agreed that the game is designed well and usable based on the character's overall mean of 9.27. So for my conclusion, the student learned how to use the student learned how to use the Baybayin script and became familiar to some of the Philippine gods and goddesses and mythological creatures by playing the 7 stages of the role-playing game. The respondents strongly agreed that the game responded consistently, its artificial intelligence behaved as intended, the game's view is appropriately set and did not feel off, the game input mechanics do not feel out of place, the in-game elements responded controls the game provided status tracking, and the game user's interface is clarified and organized. For the last, with the result of the survey, it is no doubt that the game helped in aiding the students in memorizing and being able to write the Baybayin script. The game also helped in familiarizing some of the Philippine god and goddesses as well as some mythological creatures. In addition, the game could serve as a foundation in the development process of Philippine culture themed games for students in the kolehiyo and in the and in those students. So for the recommendation, additional levels. So this is according to the data. Additional level spells, enemies, sound effects, and characters which may improve the entertainment value and learning efficiency of the 3D game. This may be added to increase the attractiveness of the game to its users. So the second recommendation, improving individuality and uniqueness of each character, spell, and enemies in order to provide more complexity to 3D game and to increase its entertainment value. For the last, adding additional feature such as loading, saving, checkpoints, and better tutorial. So, to sum it up, the game was developed, so it is available. But now I do my of course my post evaluation wherein continuing this recommendation and at the same time giving it back again to my to my beneficiaries. All right, so here's my some of my references, and I hope you like my presentation. Thank you.